What is up, everyone? OG over here from Player Essence, and welcome to another video that I have here. Today we're going to be talking about how Nintendo's master plan for the Nintendo Switch has pretty much went off near flawless. There's been a couple hooks and snags here and there, but overall everything that they've probably wanted to do in the first year and then some has worked out exactly like they planned it, and maybe even a little bit better in some regards. Now, I talked about this before the Switch even launched. Heck, I was talking about this back in like 2016 at the end when we started hearing about some of the ports and other things. I was talking about what Nintendo's plans were and what they were going to do, and pretty much everything that I stated after I found out what the Switch was, after talking to a few different people and doing some investigations on my own. It was kind of clear how this system was going to progress, what type of games it was going to get, what Nintendo was going to do at launch, and kind of then some. We'll be breaking this video down into 3 different topics here, and that is first party, then we're going to go into system sales, then third party, because that's pretty much the arc that Nintendo wanted to move this system at, and it was very apparent from the very beginning, especially from the launch and people talking about that. But even when you looked at the event that they had, pretty much everything kind of went in a certain flow, and it's probably worked out a little bit better than Nintendo thought, considering the shipments at the beginning didn't meet the demand and they pretty much had shortages. Some stuff that was kind of in their control, then some stuff that wasn't in their control at all when it came to the manufacturing parts. But let's go ahead and get right into this, starting off with the first party. Alright, so from very early on, Nintendo wanted to set the tone and establish that the Nintendo Switch was going to have strong first party support, that you weren't going to see those droughts that you saw with first party software that actually hit the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS. Nintendo started off strong with The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but then they also had other titles such as Snipperclips and another exclusive with Super Bomberman R, which they kind of, I guess, helped out with development with that one or paid for a little bit of an exclusive. Either way, they did have some strong first party support and also exclusive support when it comes to certain things. On top of that, you had stuff like Shovel Knight, and you also had just smaller games Nintendo fans in particular were really going to like. Stuff like Fast RMX was also a big hit as well. That's been one of the best selling independent titles on the Nintendo Switch, and that's a port of the Wii U game. I'm pretty sure it outsold the Wii U game as well. Shovel Knight did extremely well on the Nintendo Switch. So while it didn't launch with a ton of big first party and third party games in terms of numbers, it had a lot of select titles that Nintendo fans, that fans who love the first party games, are probably going to pick up. And that's why you saw a lot of the independent developers have a lot of success with stuff like Shovel Knight and Fast RMX, and Snipperclips was absolutely amazing. I think they tracked that at over 350,000 downloads in like a couple of months. Then it got a physical release. I'm pretty sure it's over 1 million or near 1 million units at this point, so that was also a surprise success. But the big title in terms of driving the system sales was The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and that's the main reason why when you look back at the launch of the Nintendo 3DS and you look back at the launch of the Wii U, despite those systems probably having more games, especially with the Wii U having way more third-party games and even having more quote-unquote big first-party games or exclusives, stuff like Zombie U, New Super Mario Bros. U, and Nintendo Land, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild absolutely creamed it, and Nintendo's launch lineup absolutely creamed the other launch lineups because you had those big games and because you had those games that really appealed to Nintendo fans, and they knew they were good. They knew they were good. They weren't necessarily new games. They were ports brought over, but you knew they were good. You knew Fast RMX was good and it had online play, and you knew Shovel Knight was really good, plus it had all the content that it's already been released. So you felt a little bit more confident going into it, whereas with the Wii U, you didn't have that, and the 3DS, you definitely didn't have that. So despite them having smaller in numbers, Nintendo's first party and those exclusive style games that Nintendo fans really loved really did a number on fans going out there and pre-ordering this system and making sure it was a success at the beginning, and that's exactly what Nintendo wanted to do. They wanted to use that strong first party content, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, to really drive the hype for the system and the sales of the system, because they knew if they got that, if they were able to capture that beginning spark and they could continue it on, which we're going to talk about in just a bit, then they knew that they'd have a chance to do bigger and better numbers. Now, moving on, when you talk about the first part, it didn't just stop there. Whereas with the Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS, 3DS took a little bit later to get the games. The Wii U, in terms of first party, it took a lot later to get some more first party content on the system. But Nintendo did a smart thing in saying, you know what, instead of waiting for the next games to be made like they did with the Wii U and the 3DS, here's what we're going to do. We're just going to release some of these ports. We're just going to release some of these older games. But they said, you know what, we're going to do it in a smart way, and we're going to bring our biggest game pretty much from the Wii U over, and we're not going to make people wait. It was the following month that they did that. People complained about it being a port, but it was probably one of the most intelligent moves Nintendo could make to bring that franchise, Mario Kart 8, which many people feel is the best Mario Kart ever made, definitely had the best online play, to bring that over and fix the issues that people had with the game, such as the battle mode, also fix some things with online play, and add in another item that you can use to make it more fun. In my opinion, that was such a smart move, and that probably cemented Nintendo continuing to have success throughout the rest of the year with those two big games, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and also Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. On top of that, they did not let up when it comes to things. They had ARMS, they also had Splatoon 2, you had Xenoblade, you had Pokken Tournament, another port that fixed a lot of the issues that people had, competitive multiplayer online, which was another problem that people had with the Wii U. Not enough first party games online in the first year. Well, here you go. You got multiple ones from Mario Kart, ARMS, Splatoon 2, just so many different games to pick from, Pokken Tournament as well. So Nintendo did a fantastic job in carrying that momentum really with their first party title. Now there were third party games sprinkled in and out, and we did talk about independent games as well, which we'll get to a little bit more in the last segment when we go over third party. But Nintendo's first party was really the goal of this system, to kind of drive things out, and they did a fantastic job with that. They really hit it out of the park, and that's what got the sales going, and it kind of leads us into the next part that we're going to discuss here, and that is getting into the system sales in terms of Nintendo's plan. Nintendo knew if they could get the first party games out there, people are going to buy their system, and if the games are really good and really hit on all the points, people are definitely going to buy their system, and it could do better than what they would have thought. And they noticed this very quickly after the first party games like Mario and Zelda, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ARMS, Splatoon started taking off a lot faster. They're like, oh snap, we kind of underestimated how big this was going to be, and that's what led to the shortages, but that's also what led to massive system sales. Every single month, Nintendo was moving pretty much every single piece of hardware. Things got so bad at one point that they actually had to airlift. Okay, you guys know how expensive that is, airlifting cargo. They had to airlift cargo of Nintendo Switches to the Americas in order to make it out in time for Splatoon and other games as well, which is just super expensive, but they were willing to bite the bullet for that because they knew that they had a hit on their hands and the system sales were there. So kind of breaking it up from the first party to the system sales, Nintendo continued to push that with their games, and that was a huge factor in their plans. Without the first one, in terms of part one, the first party, you wouldn't get the system sales, which is going to lead to the third party. But the sales of the system were not only steady throughout in the US, but also in Japan, and even more surprisingly in Europe, which has been better than what we've seen with the Wii U and even the Nintendo 3DS. It's pretty much doing well above the Xbox One in system sales when it comes to the Western territories, which is Europe and also America combined. I didn't expect Nintendo to do as well as it's doing. Now, obviously, all three systems are doing well, not trying to sit here and say, oh, well, it's just blowing out every single one, but at the same time, I didn't expect it to do as well as it's doing in the Western territories, just based off of what we saw, even with the Nintendo 3DS. And I think in America, it's doing just about as good as I thought, maybe even a little bit better in terms of things, but the system sales overall have been really good, and they're pretty much locked in no matter what happens, right? And I think that's the best thing about the system sales, when you have the first party content that supplements it, when you have that continuing content and all the different first party games, you can buy Nintendo Switch knowing that, hey, I have this, and this to play. There are so many games that Nintendo released in that 2017 first year in terms of first party games. Even now, where there's not as many newer games coming out, the sales are still good because Nintendo knew that if they got all those games out, they can have a month where they're maybe down a little bit. They can have a month where they don't have a big first party game, but the system will still sell because people who are looking for a new system and looking at the Switch can say, okay, well, all these games came out in 2017. I have my pick. So extremely smart on Nintendo's end. The part two in terms of the system sales was all a part of making sure that they had that first party content out, and it leads to really what the master plan was, which was to get third-party support, because people always complained about Nintendo's third-party support. And the master plan was, 1 was the first party, and then 3, we're going to get right into it right now, and that is third-party support. Now, Nintendo's always been criticized when it comes to the third-party support. I've talked about it in terms of Japanese third-party support. That's what really made me mad with the Nintendo Wii U, that Nintendo did not do enough. The system just didn't do well enough in order to get a lot of the third-party games. Square Enix, Capcom, Sega, all these different developers didn't really make much on the Nintendo Wii U unless Nintendo paid them to do so. But now what we're seeing, because of the great first-party content that drove third-party sales, third-party developers are now jumping on in mass amounts, and that was Nintendo's master plan. Their plan was to get the first-party content out, then get select third-party games and do business deals with those third-party developers, and then that would lead to bigger system sales, and then that would lead to even more third-party developers jumping on. We've been getting announcement after announcement when it comes to games, and guys, I can't say everything, but it doesn't stop there. When it comes to games like Ark Survival Evolved, there's going to be more big-name games coming over, whether it's Western developers or Japanese developers as well, and that's the most exciting thing when it comes to being a third-party developer and looking at the Nintendo Switch. You see that Nintendo's going to pump out those great first-party games. In turn, that's going to lead to the great system sales, which makes the platform far more attractive to put your game on. On top of that, if you want to monetize your platform in terms of your game, when it comes to DLC or anything like that, you have the Nintendo Switch, which can connect to online anywhere that you want. So for a lot of developers, this is the great time to kind of jump on, and that's the reason why we're seeing so many different announcements. And if you look at Nintendo when it comes to what they did beforehand and the pace of games and the rate of third-party games that are coming, you can clearly see the shift in terms of what happened and Nintendo's plan just basically working, right? Stuff like South Park, you also have stuff like Ys 8, Lacrimosa of Dana, SNK Heroines, Tag Team Frenzy. You've got some Japanese developers literally making business decisions to, yes, we're going to fund this many more millions into making a Switch version, or this much more into making it, because we have to get our game out on there. And we saw that early in 2017 with the third-party plan, with stuff like Minecraft coming out very early, Disgaea 5, and Street Fighter as well. And it continued on throughout the rest of the year, even with the big ones in November with Resident Evil, LA Noire, Skyrim, and more. And Nintendo's plan, like I said, has been working pretty much near flawlessly. Obviously, there's some issues here and there with certain games. There's some stuff like cartridge sizes that aren't necessarily affordable enough for the developers to put 32 gigabytes. You also have some voice chat problems to where developers can't really use that. Online isn't as good as it needs to be at this point, but at the same time, Nintendo did plan for that, and they're making sure that when they do launch their online, I do feel that it's going to be a quality service since they're taking their time with it. And they've also hyped it up a little bit as well in terms of being worth the wait. So I do think that while there has been some issues here and there, and they definitely need to address those, cloud saves, things like that, for the most part, their plan has pretty much went off without too many issues in terms of what they wanted to do. Alright guys, so that wraps it up for this video here. Let me know what you guys think about Nintendo's plan so far for the first year plus. What do you think that they executed on? What do you feel that they need to address at this point? Or what do you think is going to happen with the Nintendo Switch Online? What third-party games do you think are going to be made for the system based on what's going on here? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Alright Ninja, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and check out the links in the description below. We've got Facebook, we've got Twitter. Go ahead and give us a like and a follow on our social media. Really helps us spread the content of Player Essence across the interwebs in addition to YouTube. Also, make sure you check out our Patreon, Twitch, and YouTube live gaming page. Consider supporting Player Essence. When you do so, it gets you access to all sorts of cool benefits, perks, rewards, and emotes via YouTube sponsorship. So check out the link in the description below and consider supporting Player Essence right here on YouTube. Hit that like button if you did like this video. Lets me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future. And subscribe to Player Essence for the latest RPG, Japanese, and Nintendo gaming news. Thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in for the next video. Peace.